Well, good morning and welcome to Integrative Preparedness. How are you all today? I'm Steve Smith. I want to talk about whether you are going to become a slave of the government, and I wouldn't be quick to dismiss that because I think a lot of people, including those in the preparedness community, misunderstand one of the greatest preparedness lessons there's ever been. That's the story of Joseph out of the Bible. Many people are familiar with the story, and most people misunderstand it, and I'm going to tell you about that today. Welcome to all the new people, by the way, and especially for those who have joined us over on the Patreon channel. We're almost at 900 patrons over there, and it's great to have those of you who have recently joined us over there. If you haven't, I put a lot more on the Patreon channel. I'm pulling back from putting stuff up on the YouTube channel, although this one is going to go on the YouTube channel because it's it's a wide net that needs to be cast over so many people who have some basic misunderstandings about preparedness and perhaps a coming famine, a food shortage. I believe there is a food shortage coming. I believe that it's engineered. We've seen food used as weapons throughout the centuries. Many of you are familiar with the Irish famine, which was not a famine. It was an orchestrated genocide using food as the weapon. You're familiar with the Holodomor. How many of you are familiar with the killing of the buffalo in the United States as a weapon against the Indians? Okay, you know, in about I don't know, 1600s, sometimes around there, it is an estimated 60 million buffalo were in North America. And as a way to starve the Indians out, and also, you know, for the money, for the hides, everything like this. But that was part of the plan of starving the Indians out, because the Indians used the buffalo for everything, for food, for clothing, for their teepees, for the bone, they use every part of a buffalo. And so there was a concerted effort to wipe out the buffalo, and by about, I don't know, the late, about 1900, I think there was something like only about 300 left, and now they're trying to do it. That was one of the ways that they destroyed an entire people, the American Indian. So it's been used in the past. It's going to be used again. We are in the process of food being used as a weapon right now, through food shortages, through fear, through all of the food plants that have, for one reason or another, been taken out of the supply line, and through inflation. And those who are not prepared for what's coming are going to suffer. And so for that, and did I say, those of you, I meant to invite you over to the Patreon channel. I think I got involved in that a little bit. If you're not with us on the Patreon channel, the link is down below. It's only $1 a month, but we put so much more information over there. You can't even compare the YouTube channel with the Patreon channel. Okay, so much more. You get everything that's on YouTube, but so much more. Our ham, for anybody interested in ham radio, we have a particular ham section over there that has just taken off like mad. Like you can't believe it. I'm learning a lot. And one of the reasons I haven't decided whether I will allow comments on this one or not. I pretty much stopped allowing comments on YouTube because we just get too much silliness. There's a lot of you great people here. There really are a lot of great people that are just on the Patreon side. But there are a lot of nitwits too, a lot of morons that just muddy up the waters, and I just don't have time to constantly police the comments section to take off idiocies that will mislead the good people. And so that's why many times I simply won't allow comments on here at all anymore. I might on this one, because or I might not, but I want to say this, that the place, and I'll get a lot of questions, especially when I do something like the topic today, that is going to surprise many people, maybe most people. It's going to surprise people. And I get a lot of questions, but I don't have time to answer all the questions. I'll be honest. But where I do answer questions are on Patreon. That's another thing that you get from Patreon. So if you're not with us, love to have you. It'll be the best thing you do. And now I want to get started on probably one of the most misunderstood stories in the Bible having to do with preparedness. And the Bible is the best preparedness book that's ever been put out. The most misunderstood story out there. And it is a dangerous misunderstanding. Okay, now let me give you a little bit of background on Joseph for those of you who may have forgotten a little bit since Sunday school, right? Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers who were jealous of him, taken to Egypt. He was auctioned off and bought by Potiphar, who was captain of the Pharaoh's guard, pretty much in charge of everything over the Pharaoh's household. And Joseph did such a great job that Potiphar pretty much put him in charge of everything in his household. Well, Potiphar's wife got to looking at Joseph, thought he looked pretty cute, and so wanted him and started making moves on him. And I know I'm not saying that biblically, but this isn't the church channel. So she made the moves on him, and he resisted. He said, "No, don't want anything to do with that. I'm not gonna do that. That wouldn't be right. To do that with my master's wife." Well, she kept after him. He kept resisting. One day, she came up to him and grabbed him by the shirt, and he pulled away and ran off, and there she was holding his shirt. So she was so incensed that she ran off with his shirt and said, "See, Joseph tried to rape me," and to get back at him. Well, they threw him in prison. Well, while he was in prison, he became good friends with the head jailer and was then again had pretty much everything, the running of the prison turned over to him. Well, making a long story short, a couple of prisoners had dreams. Joseph was able to tell them what their dreams meant. That's an interesting story too. Don't have time for that. There's a lot of lessons there. But anyway, one of the prisoners finally gets out and returns to his job with the Pharaoh. A couple years later, the Pharaoh has a dream, and this one who was in prison with Joseph suddenly remembers, and goes to the Pharaoh. "Hey, there was this guy I was in prison with. He was able to tell me what my dream meant, so Pharaoh sends for Joseph. Joseph comes to the Pharaoh. Pharaoh tells him his dream, and Joseph tells him what it means. I won't go through all what the dreams were, but what it meant was there was going to be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine." Okay, so I'm going to pick that up here, and I'm going to read you some sections so you will hear it directly from the Bible, because you need to hear it. So many people hear things, and don't understand the whole story. Okay, so he says, and I'm going to read this out of the one that I use a lot, and I really like it. It is the New Living Translation. A lot of people will say you don't get the same translations out of some newer ones that the King James has. I will argue with that. The King James is extremely difficult to understand. It's written in older English that if you haven't studied it, you will not understand what it's saying. Too many people rely on that, and as a result come away not understanding what the text actually means. Better to have a translation, and these are not bad translations for you Bible arguers out there, and I know I'm going to get a couple. Do your research before you come on here and start arguing, if I allow comments on here at all. And don't make a fool of yourself, and don't put me in the position of having to delete your comment and perhaps ban you. Okay? So Joseph says, "My suggestion is that you find the wisest man in Egypt and put him in charge of a nationwide program." Nationwide program. Here's where you need to start paying attention, close attention. "Let Pharaoh appoint officials over the land, and let him collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years." So they're collecting all these things, all the crops, right? What is that? Is that kind of like a tax? Okay. "Have them gather all the food and grain of these good years into the royal storehouses and store it away so there will be food in the cities." in the cities. Did you catch that? We know about them trying to get everybody moving to the cities, right? 15-minute cities, all that. You hearing this? Okay. It's important that people understand this whole story, and I'm getting to the shocking part in just a minute. That way there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come. Otherwise, disaster will surely strike the land and all the people will die. Pharaoh says essentially, well, you told me what my dream meant. Must be the wisest man in Egypt. Of course, Joseph says, no, it wasn't me, it was God. But Pharaoh says, well, God is obviously with you, so I'm putting you in charge of this program. And he does. Now, here's the next line, the next verse to pay real attention to. And sure enough, for the next 7 years, there were bumper crops everywhere. Here's the kicker. During those years, Joseph took a portion of all the crops grown in Egypt and stored them for the government in nearby cities. Did you hear that? Who did he store them for? The government. Okay? That's right. In nearby cities. Okay? Now we're going to jump ahead a little bit. And there's stories in there about Joseph's brothers coming down to try to trade for grain. Interesting stories, but that's not what we're doing here now. Okay, now I'm jumping forward if you're following me here. 47th chapter of Genesis. We're going to start with verse 13. Listen carefully. This is about you potentially becoming a slave to the government. This is not, the story of Joseph is not about preparedness for the individual. It's about the government. Listen. Meanwhile, the famine became worse and worse, and the crops continued to fail throughout Egypt and Canaan. Have we seen failures here? Well, more than failures. Joseph collected all the money in Egypt and Canaan in exchange for grain, and he brought the money to Pharaoh's treasure house. Did you hear that? So he got all of the grain he had collected, all of this, 20% from everybody, stored it for who? The government. Where? In the cities. And now the famine's getting worse and worse and people are starting to starve, get hungry. So what did he do? Joseph collected all the money in Egypt and Canaan in exchange for grain, and he brought the money to Pharaoh's treasure house. All the people were starving. Did the government distribute all this grain? No. They sold it. They made all the people of Egypt and Canaan, they made them buy it. And so when they says Joseph collected all the money, well, yeah, he got all the money from all the people, all the money from all the people in Egypt and Canaan in exchange for the grain, brought the money to Pharaoh's treasure house. Okay. When the people of Egypt and Canaan ran out of money, they came to Joseph crying again for food. Our money is gone, they said. But give us bread. Why should we die? Well then, Joseph replied, and everybody thinks that Joseph is this big hero, right? Are you seeing that he is working for the man? He's working for the government. He's not for the people. He is working as an implement of the government against the people. Well then, Joseph, if you don't see that yet, you're going to see it in a minute. Well then, Joseph replied, since your money is gone, give me your livestock. I will give you food in exchange. Well, why didn't their livestock sustain them? Well, in biblical times, the grain was, it was the foodstuffs of most people, as it still is today. That's why everybody's fat and unhealthy. They're eating too much grain, not enough protein. Okay, let's get back to the Bible instead of Steve's suggesting that you follow a carnivore diet, shall we? So they gave their livestock to Joseph in exchange for food. Okay. Soon all the horses, flocks, herds, and donkeys of Egypt were in Pharaoh's possession. Whose possession? The government. But at least they were able to purchase food for that year. How long? For that year. Okay. The next year they came again and said, our money is gone, and our livestock are yours. We have nothing left but our bodies and land. Why should we die before your very eyes? Buy us and our land in exchange for food. Buy what? Buy us and our land. Give us food. We have nothing left but our bodies and land. Why should we die before your very eyes? Buy us and our land in exchange for food. We will then become servants to Pharaoh. Servant, slave. Just give us grain so that our lives may be saved, and so the land will not become empty and desolate. Well, it wasn't going to become any more empty or desolate than Pharaoh or the government wanted it to. These people were just trying to survive. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. All the Egyptians sold him their fields because the famine was so severe, and their land then belonged to Pharaoh, the government. Thus all the people of Egypt became servants, slaves to Pharaoh. You will own nothing and you'll be happy. Huh? Did you realize that this started with the story of Joseph? The only land he didn't buy was that belonging to the priests, for they were assigned food from Pharaoh and didn't need to sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, see, I have bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Is Joseph still the hero that you thought he was before hearing this? Now, maybe some of you are aware of this, but I'll venture that most of you aren't. Let me repeat that. Then Joseph said to the people, see, I have bought you and your land for Pharaoh, for the government. I will provide you with seed so you can plant the fields. Then, when you harvest it, a fifth of your crop will belong to Pharaoh. You're sharecroppers. Well, you're slave croppers. Okay? Now listen to what the people say in return. You have saved our lives, they exclaimed. May it please you, sir, to let us be Pharaoh's slaves. That ain't funny. You know what I'm laughing at? I'm laughing because I hope that this has opened some eyes out there. I'm laughing because so many people have gone through their lives totally misunderstanding the lesson of Joseph and the famine. God gave us a foreshadowing of what's coming. Do you want to be a slave to the government? Well, of course, most of you, hopefully all of you, but most of you, because there's going to be a sluggard or two out there goes, I don't care, just give me something to eat, you know. Most of you are going to say, no, I don't want to be a slave to the government. Well, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it to ensure that you will be able to withstand a famine without selling everything you own, including yourself and your children, to the government? What are you doing? You've heard me say before, when people ask how much food should you have, you've heard what I say? I say 7 years. I say it's biblical. A lot of people didn't realize that this is what I was referring to. 7 years. Have more. But have not just stored. You have to develop your ability to provide an ongoing fashion for all your food needs. That means growing it and raising it. And if you can't do that, you're just waiting to be made a slave. Now, many of you will say, but I can't do it. But I can't do it, Steve. I had somebody come on the other day and make one of those stupid comments that I hate so much. But you don't realize that some of us don't have all the money in the world. Yeah, neither do I. Some of us are just barely getting by. Then do better. I can't stand excuses. And if that's you, let me suggest you stop watching this right now and get out there and do something. Get off your butt and do something to improve your life. I was about to take that idiotic comment off, and then all of a sudden a whole bunch of the other viewers got on there and started telling him, stop whining. This is what Steve's talking about. Steve ought to pin this comment to show exactly the kind of moronic, negative comments he gets on these videos, which makes him not want to allow comments. So I left it up. I might open this for comments just to see it. And if you make a dumb comment, I just might pin it up there for everybody to respond to you. Don't put yourself in a position of looking like a fool, okay? I put something up on the Patreon channel today. It was every day I start the day on the Patreon channel. Again, if you're not there, you should be. You should be. Can't afford $1? Let me show you how to get $1. Go down to your local grocery store. Walk around the parking lot. Before noon, you will have found over $1 in change that people have dropped on the ground. Okay? So don't give me any excuses about you can't do it. I don't care. Here, I'm getting I get a little bit irritated at this stuff. I don't care if I get your $1. What I do care is that you get the information, and guess what? There's a price for it. And if you want everything for free, that's the first problem you need to get over. So I'm helping you get over that, okay? Essentially that. That's your first problem. You can't have everything for free. You can't have good stuff for free. But Steve, the best things in life are free. Really? Okay. Well, love is free. The love of God is free. Other than that, try to do pretty much anything in your life for free. Yeah, you can go watch a sunset. That's beautiful. We're not talking about that. Don't get into those stupid weeds, okay? Get out there and do something. But anyway, I started today, every day on Patreon, and I would love for you to be over there. That's my point. If you're a good, serious-minded, preparedness-minded person who wants to get better and wants to learn a lot more, I want you to join us on Patreon. That's why I keep saying it. Keep saying it. When you care about people, you keep after them, and you keep after them. Please do this, please do this, please do this. And I'm saying that, please join Patreon. You're going to get so much out of it. It's going to help you. I won't notice your $1. Let me put it that. I will not notice your $1. You will notice the benefits you get. How about that? I'm not a very good salesman, but I did the best I could with that. That just makes sense to me, okay? But anyway, every day I start off with something on the chat. We start a chat that all the Patreons can go back and forth on throughout the day. And the one I put up today was a quote by Muhammad Ali, and it says something. I don't remember exactly what it says, but pretty much what I say very often, and that is, when somebody says they can't do something, they've already set themselves up for failure. Don't set yourself up. You have self-limited yourself. The whole world will try to limit you. Why would you want to limit yourself? And yet the whole world will give you opportunities all over the place. You are surrounded with opportunities. The successful person recognizes and makes use of those opportunities. The failure refuses to see those opportunities and limits themselves by saying they can't. Okay, so getting back to the lesson of today, the true lesson of Joseph, I hope that helped many of you learn. This was a warning. Joseph was, as I said, he was the tool of a government that enslaved the people through food. They're going to try it again. If you don't want to be a slave to the government and your children, you need to take the steps necessary to provide for those ongoing needs yourself. I'll throw it in here. How do I do that, Steve? I'll show you how. There you go. The Stonemont series, my books. My books. I wrote 6 books about this stuff. How about 6 novels? It's a series. Big story about a prepared family who, as a result of their preparedness, was able to continue living a high-quality life after the collapse of everything, and as a result of their preparedness was able to help other people and rebuild community. How about that? How about that for a story? It's a great story. Okay, these are available through Amazon. You get them pretty quick if you order them through Amazon, or you can get them from me, and the links are down below. Amazon link is down below, as is the link to our website, stonemont.us. If you order them from me, you get them more slowly because I keep running out, and I'm sorry, I keep ordering more, but I keep running out because more people buy them. Thank you very much. I get to sign them for you, and I love doing that because I love my relationship with my readers. And I've got a bunch of orders stacked up now, and Amazon just sent me a notice that I'm supposed to get the next bunch today. So as soon as that gets in, I'm going to spend the rest of my day, I guess, signing books and shipping them out and shipping mugs out and things like that. That's how you do it. Steve, how can I do it? Here's how you do it. If you haven't read them, this is probably your next step. Okay, I've had people say they've read through the whole series 5 times and still are learning things that they missed their first 4 times through. Do it. It's up to you. It's not up to me. It's not up to your neighbor. It's not up. And just sitting around and watching YouTube videos and things like that aren't going to do it. You have to do it. You have to do it yourself. Okay. But understand what the real story of Joseph. I'll make another little side here about the Bible. So many people misunderstand so much in the Bible. So much. I'll just leave that there. Okay. But now you know the rest of the story, right? Remember, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Get out there and do something every day to prepare so that you and your children will not become slaves to a government when the starving times get here. Have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.